So hi, and welcome to our final festival session. I can't quite believe it's the end of October. Clocks changed in the UK last night, and it's Halloween. We're expecting trick or treaters, maybe if the weather holds up. And yeah, it feels like the world has changed quite a lot from the beginning of October till the end of October. But I think whatever else has happened in October, I hope that it's given you an opportunity to reflect on your drinking habits, whether you've experimented with being alcohol free, whether you've been consciously cutting down, or whether you've just been approaching the festival with a spirit of exploration, really, and figuring out what it is that you want to do in your relationship with alcohol. I hope that there has been lots in this October's Global Mindful Drinking Festival, which has really helped. We have, over the course of this month, we've generated over 30 hours of video content for you on all sorts of different aspects of changing your drinking, whether you're just in the early stages of working out what to do, whether you are thinking back to the first conversations we had with Stephanie at the beginning of the month about, actually just getting started on day one. We've talked about making friends when you're not drinking, having a social life that doesn't revolve around alcohol. We've had big discussions with experts on subjects like socializing and motivation and purpose and mindfulness. And lots which I hope will encourage you beyond this month to build a life which doesn't revolve around drinking, whatever that looks like for you. There's something that's really important to us in Club Soda, which is about helping you put alcohol in its proper place. So we are not, and I hope you've gathered this over the course of the month, we're not an abstinence-only organisation. We think there are lots of ways to change your drinking. And really the only thing that works is the change that works for you. So I want to encourage you, as we come to the end of October and as we think about what's next, to be open to the idea of an ongoing exploration and conversation with yourself about alcohol and its place in your life. So this session is about how to sustain change. As I say, we are coming up towards the end of October, and maybe you joined the festival with a sober October intention. Maybe we've been sustaining you through that month. Maybe there are bits where it hasn't gone to plan. Maybe it's only been a bit soberish rather than completely alcohol free. Maybe you joined because you were actively exploring, thinking about ways of cutting down. Whatever else has happened over the course of this month, you're going to need a new plan tomorrow. So all of the festival content's still going to be here. So you're going to be able to dive back and look at anything that you've missed. But you are going to need a new plan for tomorrow. So over the next hour, I want to talk about how you can decide about whether you should continue alcohol-free or whether you should be consciously including alcohol in your life. Then we're going to talk a bit about how you can consolidate what you've learned over the course of the festival. And then we're going to talk really practically about planning for what's next. But I want to start with this business of being alcohol free or consciously including alcohol in your life. I mean, in fact, at the end of this festival, you've got three options broadly. The first is, and let's be completely honest, you can, if you want to, forget any of this has ever happened. If you really want to go back to drinking as it was before, I'm going to please encourage you to go slowly, because if you've taken some time off from drinking, your tolerance for alcohol will have massively declined over the last month. So if you are going to go back to drinking just like you did before, you should expect hangovers to hurt more. But that is an option to you, to be completely frank. If you want to forget everything that's happened, if you've decided it's all too much and you just want to go back to drinking, that is an option that's open to you. But broadly speaking, when we're talking about changing our drinking, we have got two sets of options available to us. One is about being alcohol free. So deciding that in the life that we imagine for ourselves, alcohol doesn't have a role to play. And then on the other hand, we can decide that we want to consciously include alcohol in our lives in particular situations. And I'll talk a little bit more about what that might look like in a bit. But broadly speaking, we're talking about drinking or not drinking. This is really the choice that we have ahead of us. And in Club Soda, we will support you either way. So whether you want to avoid alcohol completely, or whether you want to consciously include alcohol in your life, we will support you either way. And really, that choice is always yours. What I wanted to touch on briefly, though, were some specific circumstances in which being alcohol free is going to be a much better and ultimately safer option for you. They're very specific, but it is worth talking about. The first is that if you've been physically dependent on alcohol, so if you've experienced withdrawal symptoms when you stop, sweats and shakes, anxiety, nausea, vomiting, or the severer end of the spectrum, fits and seizures and confusion and disorientation, feeling physically unbalanced, feeling unstable, these kind of more severe alcohol withdrawal symptoms, which you really must pay attention to and get medical support with. But if you've been in that situation of having experienced physical dependence on alcohol, of course, all things being equal, you can choose whatever you want to do. We're all grown-ups, but there are some things to look out for, reasons why being abstinent is likely to be a better decision for you. The first is if alongside being physically dependent on alcohol, you also experience a serious mental illness. So if you experience periods of psychosis or schizophrenia, if you experience depression or anxiety, which you need support and medication for long term, all of those conditions are going to be made worse and harder to manage because of alcohol. So that's one thing bearing in mind. If alcohol and mental health challenges, significant mental health challenges, have been mixed up together, continuing alcohol-free is likely to be the safer option for you. And you should talk to your doctor and any mental health support about your decisions around drinking, because they can support you with that. The second is, again, and this is a medical thing, but if you've got advice from your doctor about not drinking, so for example, if you've had a diagnosis of liver disease of some kind, or a doctor has expressed concern about the impact that drinking is having on your physical health, then having had a period alcohol free, you're going to want to continue that if that's possible for you to do. And again, doing that in conversation with your doctor is really important. Being honest and open, and we've got advice on our website about talking to your doctor about your drinking. It doesn't have to be a big scary thing, and they can support you to continue to sustain change in whatever way it works for you. And then the final reason why being alcohol free is going to be a better option to pursue is if your drinking causes significant risk of harm to others, and particularly if it causes risk of harm to children, your children or other people's children. So those are three key reasons, very specific, but three key reasons why, if you're coming to the end of this month and if you're considering your options about going alcohol free or reintroducing alcohol consciously, why you're going to want to end up on the side of remaining alcohol free. So serious mental illness, serious physical consequences, serious physical illness, or that you place other people, particularly children, at risk through your drinking. Those are concrete reasons to continue alcohol free, but they are very tightly defined and for a very specific group of people. And there are going to be many of you watching this who don't fit into those categories. So I just want to talk then about three questions that you can ask yourself when you're considering this business of continuing alcohol-free or including alcohol consciously in your life. And they're these: do I have an off switch? Am I happy to experiment? And what's my gut feeling? So 3 questions. Do I have an off switch? Am I happy to experiment? And what's my gut feeling? So let's take those in order. So this first business of, do I have an off switch? Now, one thing that's really important to say is that the off switch isn't a literal switch. And believe me, all sorts of behavior change scientists, biochemists, addiction specialists, and others have gone looking for a particular gene or a behavioral trait or a life circumstance or a trauma or something which says this type of person can't stop when they start drinking. And of course, there isn't just one thing. We're very complex. Even if it was a matter of brain chemistry, our brains exist in our bodies and we are influenced by our environment every day. We are influenced in our decision making by whether we've eaten or not, whether we're hungry and tired. All of these things can affect our responses to alcohol. So don't think of the off switch as a singular thing, but think of it more of as a conversation with yourself, really. And the conversation is this: how easy or not do I find it to stop drinking once I've started? Now, I want to kind of dig into that a little bit, because one of the effects that alcohol has on us, of course, is that it erodes our self-control. Alcohol is brilliant at helping us not care about things, about discarding our decision making, about not worrying about previous commitments that we've made for ourselves. Alcohol is very good at drowning those voices out. But so it does need to be a bit of an ongoing decision. But this conversation about if I start drinking, can I stop? Now, one of the reasons that you might find it hard to stop drinking once you start is actually that you just drink really quickly. If we drink really quickly, we overwhelm our brains. We experience alcohol's effects much more rapidly. If you're drinking on an empty stomach, if you're drinking quickly, you are likely to push your off switch into submission much more quickly. So so it may be that actually this conversation of do I have an off switch or not is dependent on what you're drinking, how quickly you're drinking. Also, circumstances might matter as well. Some people find it very easy to not drink at home, but find when they're out with their friends they lose it completely, and they're two bottles of wine later before they've even blinked. So it's just useful to notice, that ability to say no to yourself, to stop once you've started. Does it change in different circumstances? But ultimately, if you think you're the kind of person that actually, do you know what? Once I've started drinking, 9 times out of 10, I find it nearly impossible to stop until all the alcohol's gone, then genuinely being alcohol-free is going to be the easier option for you. Now, I'm not discounting the fact that you could learn to include alcohol consciously. Of course you could, but I'm just saying it could be incredibly difficult if you struggle to stop once you've started. So that's the first thing. Just a question, a conversation with yourself, looking about all the different circumstances that you drink in. How easy do I find it to stop once I've started? Do I have an off switch? It's a really important question to ask yourself. The second question to ask yourself is, am I happy to experiment? So earlier this week on Tuesday, and you'll find it back in the festival material, I had a brilliant conversation with Dru Jaeger, who is a behavior change specialist. She's the author of The Kindness Method and The Last Diet. And she works with people. Her early career was in addictions, and she continues to work with people who are changing their behavior around addictive substances like alcohol and other drugs. And one of the things that she said, which really struck me, in fact, struck me so much I turned it into a reel, stuck it up on Instagram, was that learning to not drink is a very noble aim. It's a brilliant thing that you've done if you've taken time off from drinking during this month, but it absolutely does not prepare you to include alcohol consciously in your life. If you've taken any time off drinking, if you've hit the pause button on your drinking for a period of time, you should not be surprised when you start drinking again that your drinking behavior goes back to how it was before you stopped. You haven't learned some really key skills which you need to be able to include alcohol consciously. And they are, going back to the off switch question, learning to say no to yourself once you've started, but also learning to drink slowly enough that you can account for alcohol's impact on your body and your decision making. To learn that there are different circumstances in which you can feel okay about not drinking. Can you go out? Can you socialize with people? Can you notice your limits before you're reaching them? If you've decided, I'm going to have 2 drinks, how would it be if you just had 1 drink? And notice the effect that had on you. Are you able to calibrate your response in different circumstances? One of my colleagues in Club Soda uses her emotions as a guide to whether she's going to drink or not on a particular situation. If she's feeling particularly low or anxious, she'll simply avoid alcohol because she doesn't want to add to that problem. So, but what that means in practice is that, and you'll know this if you've stopped drinking and you've struggled with that. If there have been moments where it's gone wrong and you've had to start again, there's a skill to learn there, isn't there? Which is like, how do I not drink? It's a really important skill to learn. And it's one that doesn't necessarily come easy to us, and one that can take some time to learn. But when you consider that one skill against all of the whole host of skills that you've got around moderate consumption of alcohol, that same learning process is going to happen. So being happy to experiment essentially is my code for, am I happy to put up with hangovers while I work through this process of learning how to do this well? So there will be situations, if you're moderating, in which moderation is not going to work for you. And being okay about that, being okay that it's a learning process, that there's stuff to get to grips with in this process of learning how to do it, that's really important. So that's the second question. Am I happy to experiment? If you are, moderation might work for you. If you are happier not experimenting and with the safety of learning and practicing a single skill of not drinking, then remaining alcohol free is likely to be a better option for you. And then the final thing is, what's your gut feeling? Very often when we start thinking about changing our drinking, we approach it at a very emotional level. We might actually feel some things very strongly about our behavior. We might even feel some anger towards alcohol, towards ourselves. And that can be really motivating. We might also have thought a lot about changing our drinking. This conversation that we're having right now is likely to be setting off all sorts of things in your head about being alcohol free versus moderating. You might be thinking through different circumstances, working out what might work for you. That's all good. But we also can approach life intuitively with our gut sense, and very often alcohol is very good at drowning out our intuition. And actually a little period of alcohol freeness can give some space for you to be able to listen to your gut, listen to your intuition about what it is that might work for you. And I am a big believer in trusting it. It can take a little while to tune into what your gut intuition is about what might work for you. But learning to lean into it, learning to trust it. If you, underneath all of the conversation that you have in your head, underneath all of the argument and ups and downs of emotion that you have in your heart, if your gut feeling is, my life is just going to be easier and better if I'm alcohol free, then I want to encourage you to listen to that, not to rationalize it away, not to worry about the situations where it's going to be difficult, not to be fearful about the impact that it might have on relationships, say. Just lean into that gut feeling. Equally, if your gut feeling is, all things considered, I want to be able to include alcohol in my life, then equally, I'm going to encourage you to lean into that. There will be challenges along the way. There will be arguments in your head. There'll be conflicting emotions in your heart, but you can lean into that gut decision and see where it takes you. And this is, I guess, kind of three key things to remember as you are beginning this journey of what's next. So you've asked these three questions. Do I have an off switch? Am I happy to experiment? And what's my gut feeling? But just three considerations, whether you decide I'm going alcohol free on a result of those three questions, whether I'm going alcohol free or whether I'm moderating, three really key things to remember. The first is, you don't have to make it a forever decision. And in fact, forever decisions can be really unhelpful to us because they can induce a sense of anxiety. They can make us really worried. And that worry, particularly if we're people who respond to our emotions, if we manage our emotions through drinking, actually what we've set up in a forever decision is some anxiety and a trigger for drinking potentially. So you don't have to make it a forever decision. take the pressure off yourself. You might have made a decision about 30 days. You might want to say extend it to the new year. What would it be like if I didn't need to make a New Year's resolution about quitting drinking, because actually I'm going to continue alcohol free until the 10th of January, for example. So you could set yourself that kind of goal, or you could just say, actually, I can't think that far in advance, but I can think about the next week or the next 3 days, or even I can just think about tomorrow and what I'm going to do. So you don't have to make it a forever decision. Work at a time scale that works for you, and at a time scale which doesn't make you anxious or worried, but a time scale that you can plan and mentally accommodate. That's a really important thing to do. The second thing, a little controversially, is that you can adopt these different approaches in different situations. So I want to talk a little bit about some of the ways in which drinking can get us into trouble, just to kind of frame this idea about being alcohol free or moderating as different approaches within a single life. So broadly speaking, there are 3 types of drinking which we know get us into trouble. And if you sign up to our course, How to Change Your Drinking, if you've done the festival onboarding survey, if you do any of our in-depth courses like How to Stop Drinking or How to Drink Mindfully, we'll give you some feedback on this about different areas of your life where drinking might be a problem for you. But broadly speaking, 3 types of drinking which can cause us difficulties. Social drinking. So that's all of the drinking that we do in relationships with others, not just in social environments like pubs and restaurants, but the drinking that you do with your partner to bond and to maintain your relationship is social drinking. So there's social drinking that can cause us difficulties. Then there is emotional drinking. So this is the drinking that we do either to enhance good feelings or to diminish difficult feelings. If you are somebody who drinks when you're stressed or anxious, or if you're annoyed, if you just want the kids to shut up and go away because you're frustrated, and then pouring a drink helps you with that, that's emotional drinking. So there's social drinking, emotional drinking, and then there's routine drinking, which is the kind of drinking that just happens. It's the absent-minded, opportunistic drinking if it's there. It's the Friday night takeaway drinking, the Sunday lunch drinking, the drinking when you're watching sports drinking. It's the drinking that you totally take for granted as an inbuilt part of life. And so we've got these 3 types of drinking that can cause us difficulties. And each of us, if we look at our drinking, sometimes I think we look at our drinking as one big whole. And I'm not sure how helpful that is, because we need different responses to social drinking and to emotional drinking and to routine drinking. And it may be that you notice, do you know what, actually, in terms of dealing with my emotions, my best option is just to be alcohol free. For myself, I have a history of depression and anxiety throughout much of my adult life. And I know in terms of managing my emotional state, drinking is a really bad idea. It just amplifies my bad feelings. It increases my anxiety levels. It makes I already have a fairly wild roller coaster of emotion in life. And frankly, alcohol in my belly just makes that roller coaster even more sickening. So if you are that person, it may be that you go, okay, when it comes to drinking and my emotions, and that might well be drinking at home, alcohol is out of the picture completely. But I do know if I'm in a social environment, and particularly if I'm sharing alcohol with friends, say I'm with a group of people and we're sharing a bottle of wine, I can have 1 glass, and then deciding that you're alcohol free in some circumstances and that you're going to consciously include alcohol in others begins to make some sense, because you can start to say to yourself, I'm never going to drink at home. I'm not going to buy alcohol to have in the house. I will consider drinking in social environments with certain groups of people in particular situations where I know that I can easily locate my off switch, where I'm happy to experiment if it goes wrong. My gut feeling is it's going to work. So you can take an approach which varies depending on the situation that you're in. That's a completely legitimate way to go about changing your drinking. For myself, I don't do routine drinking. There is no part of my drinking behavior which happens absent-mindedly. I don't buy alcohol when I go to the supermarket. I don't expect to drink when I go to the pub. I don't take booze with me to parties. Routine drinking just doesn't figure in my life. So that, that is an area, that's a style of drinking where I've decided being alcohol-free doesn't work for me. When it comes to managing my emotions, I've decided being alcohol-free doesn't work for me. But there are social occasions on which I feel that they're enhanced by drinking. So effectively, I end up being alcohol-free by default, but there are particular circumstances in which I might choose to drink. So you can adopt different approaches in different parts of life. And the third thing that's really important to say as you're moving out of this period and into something new is to say that one slip up doesn't mean that there's something wrong with you. And it doesn't mean that there's something wrong with the decision that you've taken about how you're going to change your drinking. It's so important. I want to say it again. One slip up doesn't invalidate you, and it doesn't invalidate the decisions that you've made. It takes time to learn. All of us, we have very ingrained patterns of behavior, and alcohol actually strengthens those behavioral patterns, which make it more likely that we're going to drink. So change does take time. So one thing that I hear very often in the club soda community is a conversation that goes like this. I took a month off drinking and I decided I was going to go and moderate. So I went to the pub on Friday afternoon with my friends, and now it's Saturday morning and I've got a cracking hangover because my drinking got completely out of hand. And there's a part of me which is, I want to express sympathy for you if you're in that situation. I know how painful and difficult that is, but I also need to tell to you, of course, that's what happened. Of course, that's what happened. If you take a month off drinking and you go back to the pub and you expect things to be different, they're not going to be unless you make a plan for them to be different. Or else, if you've taken October off, when you go back to drinking again in November, it's going to be much like it was at the end of September, except it's going to hurt more. That doesn't mean that moderation doesn't work. It just means that your plan wasn't good enough, that you weren't prepared, that you hadn't thought through your triggers, that you hadn't noticed. So don't discount the method of changing your drinking because it didn't work for you first time. Go back to your gut feeling. If your gut feeling is, actually, this is a thing that I want to pursue, then I'm going to encourage you to pursue it, to try it again, to learn from what happened, make a different plan, try something new next time. And it also doesn't mean that there is something inherently wrong with you. You are not broken. You are not broken. There is nothing wrong with you. All of us have habits that we want to shift and change. Alcohol can make changing some of those habits harder, but it doesn't mean that there's something inherently wrong with you. You can, and you do, make good decisions about alcohol as a substance. And learning to change means building on the good decisions that you've already made. So just if you do slip up, and you will slip up, probably, to be frank, it's best to expect that you'll slip up and then approach that situation with an attitude of learning. If you expect that things will go wrong sometimes, not that you're going out looking for stuff to go wrong, but sometimes stuff isn't going to work, then you can approach that. You can approach your review of that situation open-heartedly, with an attitude of learning, being kind to yourself, noticing what happened, and then planning for what you might do differently next time. And again, that's really going to help you as you move forward. So yeah, these three things to remember, whatever else it is that you decide about being alcohol-free or consciously including alcohol. Don't make it a forever decision. Take that pressure off yourself. Adopt different approaches in different situations if you need to. You might want different approaches to social, emotional, and routine drinking. And then remember, really critically, one slip up doesn't mean that there's something wrong with you, and it doesn't mean that there's anything wrong with your chosen approach. You are just learning. So let's imagine that you've got safely through the beginning of November. You're beginning to make progress, and time is passing. So let's talk a bit about how you can consolidate your progress. Over time, one of the things that will happen, and it might feel a bit disconcerting, is that drinking, this conversation that you've been having with yourself about drinking, might just begin to feel a bit less significant. It might begin to feel a bit less important to you. And one of the worries that people often have, I think, is about becoming ambivalent, or getting to a point where we think, oh, drinking doesn't matter anymore. And that can be a danger. But it also can be a good thing. If you are somebody who has wrestled with drinking and you find 6 months on, a year on, you're just not thinking about drinking all the time because life has moved on and you're thinking about new things instead, that's actually a really good thing. It's not a sign that you're about to slip up. So don't worry if you have a day where drinking just isn't part of your thinking at all. Don't worry. It's not an omen that something is about to go wrong. It's a normal part of this developmental journey of change. But one thing that is useful to notice in that process of change as you go on is that your motivation for change will change. Many of us, I think, begin this journey, particularly if we've been somebody who's wrestled with drinking. We start this journey driven by our feelings. You might be angry about alcohol. You might be angry with yourself. You might be frustrated. You might be sad. You might be fearful about the consequences of continuing to drink. All sorts of reasons which can, like, really big, difficult emotions which can motivate us into change. And that impetus that we get, that right, today's the day I'm going to do something, that can be hugely motivating to get us going. But that impetus to change is going to diminish over time. You are, as time goes on, 3 weeks after you stop drinking, you're not going to be experiencing hangovers. And if, I don't want to feel like this anymore was one of your motivations to change, you're not experiencing that anymore. So you shouldn't be surprised if your motivation changes, just because you've changed. So it's really useful as you're consolidating your progress to begin to look forward, have regular review points to see what's changed. Your motivation will change over time. Equally, you might find yourself looking back and beginning a conversation with yourself that says, maybe my drinking wasn't as bad as I thought it was. Maybe I do know. Maybe I can cope with it. Maybe I can do a big party and it'll be fine. And so be aware of that. Beware of rosy retrospection, as behavior change scientists would call it, looking at the world through rose-tinted glasses, in kind of more common language. But just beware of that. Beware of looking back and diminishing the problem, but also don't expect that you're going to feel the problem to the same extent as you go along. So it's really useful to take some time to look back over what's happened, to remember your starting point, to notice where you've got to, and to pay attention to what's going on for you. Now, if you sign up to one of our courses, either How to Stop Drinking or How to Drink Mindfully, at the end of each part of the course, we've got some questions which we encourage you to use to review your progress. Now, these questions are actually, they're not random. They're questions which I've experimented with over time and I found helpful. So there may be other questions which are helpful to you. But about 3-4 years ago, I spent some time talking to all sorts of different people I knew who were very good at, seemed to be from the outside, very good at the business of change. And I asked them, if you are stopping, looking back over your progress, maybe writing in a journal, what kind of questions are you asking yourself? So I gathered from this group of people, I gathered about 30 or 40 questions, and I began experimenting with them in my journal, working out what questions help me consolidate my progress. And eventually I settled on a group of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 questions, which I ask myself regularly, and they're built into the course. They're designed so that you can ask these questions as well. And we're going to share them with you now. So no kind of like There's no kind of secret behind the scenes, sign up to get the 7 questions thing. I'm going to tell you. But these are questions which work for me. They might not work for you. So if they don't, find questions which work for you. But these are the questions that I've asked, that I ask myself. Firstly, how long has it been since I started changing? Good question. How long is it? Did you, as you look back, do you notice actually there was a significant moment where my drinking turned a corner back in September on this date? It might not have been your day one. You might have had many of them, but there was this date where something changed. So how long has it been since I started changing? That essentially gives you your review period. Second question, what's happened since then? It's really useful to do this on a really practical level. Get out your diary, notice where you've been. Have there been social interactions? Has there been a period of lockdown? Have you been stuck at home for a period of time? What's happened? Has there been a work conference? Has there been just literally day by day in your diary, what's happened since that point? It's just really useful to orient yourself to what's happened in that passing of time. So first question, how long's it been? Second, what's happened since then? Third question, were there particular situations in which I was honest, brave, or kind to myself? So we introduced these attitudes, honesty, bravery, and kindness, at the beginning of our courses, because we think in Club Soda, they are really important in helping you create and sustain change. Being honest with myself means telling the truth about my situation. That might require some bravery because I might need to act differently. And in doing that, I want to do that in an attitude of being kind to myself, not being mean to myself, but supporting myself and nurturing myself to change. So looking back, are there particular situations in which I was honest, brave, or kind to myself? One of the things that question does is it orients your brain to look for good things. One of the ways that your brain works, my brain works, everyone's brains works, is that we form our memories around strong emotional experiences. And if you're in the business of change, and particularly if you are struggling to change, which many of us do in the early days, you might have ups and downs, things that go well and not so well. We are going to form memories around the things which go badly. You are going to remember the days where things go wrong. You just are. Your brain is going to be, those moments are going to be seared into your brain. But you can consciously choose to remember other things. And so these 3 questions, looking for these 3 characteristics over that period of time, were there particular situations in which I was honest or brave or kind to myself? You're encouraging yourself to remember the times where it went right, where things went right, and form memories. All of our memories are little stories that we tell ourselves. So take some time to actively remember when you've been honest or brave or kind to yourself. Now, we start then to step back into some more reflective questions. So question 4, what have I discovered about myself? What have I discovered about myself so far? What do I know about myself now that I didn't know at the time that I started this? There will be things there will be things that you know now that you didn't know about yourself. And again, look for the things which have gone well. If you found that you were able to say no in a particular situation, and you didn't expect that to happen, that's a really good thing to notice. So what have I discovered about myself? Second question, what surprised me? So very often, and this does happen as you go through any journey of change, there will be moments where you go, I just genuinely did not know that. That's really surprised me. I did, there are moments of inspiration and revelation that happen along the way. So notice what surprised me. Then again, this is a much more reflective question. It might take some time, but this, the grounding of what you've done, this is a useful question to ask yourself. As I look back, is there anything I missed or overlooked in my experiences that seems important now? One of the things that I know, I've been on this journey for years, and one of the things that I notice now, because I journal and I look back over my journals and I do have these periods of reflection and looking back on a fairly regular basis, is that something that seemed fairly insignificant a year ago might actually be really important now. So as you're going along, as you're building on your experience of change, as you are beginning to create a life that doesn't center around drinking, take time to look back and notice. You might even want to look back into your drinking days. Something might strike you as important now that you'd missed or you overlooked previously. So take some time to dig around, notice if there's anything that you've dismissed or overlooked previously that feels important now. And then you can work with that. And then finally, and this is such an important question, what am I grateful for? Very often as we've been through any process of change, particularly if we've struggled, we tend to focus on things which have gone wrong, but also we can end up pretty tired. And because change can be tiring, you might feel the physical benefits of change, particularly if you've cut out or significantly reduced alcohol, you might feel more energy. But you also just might be a bit exhausted by the process of change. And that's okay. But it's really important to counterbalance that by beginning to notice what you're grateful for. There's really good evidence that noticing little things around us, they can be as seemingly inconsequential as, I'm grateful that I'm breathing today. I'm grateful that I've woken up and the sun is shining. I'm grateful that my bed was comfortable last night. These are not actually insignificant things in our feelings of well-being. So noticing what you're grateful for. So yeah, 7 questions. How long's it been since I started changing? What's happened to me since then? Were there particular situations in which I was honest, brave, or kind to myself? What have I discovered about myself so far? What surprised me? As I look back, is there anything I missed or overlooked in my experiences that seems important now? And finally, what am I grateful for? So use those questions on a regular basis. Take some time out. You might want to give yourself a day or a couple of hours or 15 minutes, but however long you give yourself some time to look back over your experiences and reflect. The next thing that does is it also sets up the opportunity for you to plan for what's next. One of the brilliant conversations that we've had in the festival I had last weekend with Valerie Mason-John, and she had this beautiful image of life as a mandala, and of pushing alcohol to the edges. And when we're in this business of changing our drinking, whether we're cutting down or stopping drinking completely, essentially what we're doing is, where alcohol's taken a really central position in our lives, we are slowly but surely pushing it to the edges. And as you do that, what you end up doing is you open up space for new things to emerge. So planning for what's next can be a lot about noticing what's emerging for you as you push alcohol to the edges of life, as it becomes less significant for you, creating space for what emerges. There was a brilliant psychiatrist called Arnold Beiser, and he wrote an article called The Paradoxical Theory of Change, and one article which actually kind of like career defining really for him, but it contains this really simple idea that change occurs when we become who we are, not when we try to become what we're not. And one of the things just to kind of notice as you reflect back on your experiences with alcohol is to notice how drinking changed you. And without drinking in the picture, to notice who you are now. And part of that business of clearing space in the center of our lives, pushing alcohol to the edges, noticing what emerges, is noticing who it is that we're becoming, and finding a sense of purpose. I talked a little bit ago about how that impetus to change can often be driven from a place of some really quite dark emotions, anger and fear and frustration and worry. All of those things can propel us to change, but they diminish. Their effect diminishes over time because those difficult feelings begin to wane. But one of the things that having a sense of purpose does is that engages our positive emotions, and particularly engages our emotions of hope and optimism. And so this sense of purpose, who it is, if I've pushed alcohol to the edges of life, who is it that I'm becoming? Engaging with that question can become really motivating to help you continue to create and sustain change. Now, when we think about purpose, and again, really useful conversation that we had with Sharath Jivan last weekend that Laura had on the subject of motivation, and Sharath talked a lot about purpose. It's really easy for that conversation about purpose to turn into a conversation about work. And it's not that. We do live in a society where our purpose is judged by society in terms of our economic contribution. The conversation are very depressing, off the cuff party conversations. Who are you and what do you do? Are not who are you and what role do you play in the world. Our conversations is who are you and how are you economically productive. It's depressing and reductive, but really our purpose is so much more than the things that we do that people pay us for. I'm a parent. Part of my purpose in life is having raised a child who's now an adult in his early 20s and making his way in the world. One of my purposes in life is continuing to support and nurturing him and helping him to flourish and develop in life. My purpose equally can be in the relationships that I have with other people. My purpose could be planting a tree. My purpose could be, it's the beginning of COP26, the Climate Action Conference, International Climate Change Conference in Glasgow. As I deliver this, part of your purpose might be contributing to the well-being of the planet and making a difference for the environment. But whatever it is, whatever that sense is, whatever emerges for you, whatever grabs you, as you clear alcohol to the edges of your life and you create space for something new to emerge, whatever that purpose is, consider it to be an unfolding conversation that you have with the world about your place in it. And then it becomes a really interesting conversation, which isn't about what I need. It's about what I can contribute. And you get to this much, much bigger picture of how good life can be when you've pushed alcohol to the edges, when you've created space where new things are emerging and where you get excited about a purpose in life and a willingness and an ability to contribute to the well-being of other people and to the planet as well. And having that sense of purpose actually then really helps you sustain change, because then the conversation that you have about alcohol changes in nature. Choice by choice, it's about making decisions that take you a step further along this path of being the person that you're becoming. So your decision isn't, should I have a beer or not? Is having this beer contributing to my purpose, to the kind of person that I want to become? And that's a much more exciting and dynamic conversation, which makes alcohol so much less interesting and important, because you suddenly begin to realize, actually, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. I'm centering my life on new things. And that's okay. And the decisions about alcohol or not alcohol become insignificant and trifling to you because you're excited about something else. Choice by choice, taking steps towards the person that you're becoming. And I just wanted to kind of, as a final thing, just offer you three questions that I use when I'm reflecting to think about the person that I'm becoming. They are really simple, but I use them as journaling prompts. And you can use these questions as a day planner. Or you can use them in a kind of a more metaphorical life sense. But they're three really simple questions. Where am I going? What am I doing? Who am I becoming? And I use those questions in my journal on a really regular basis to help me, continue that conversation with myself about my purpose. Where am I going? Physically, where am I going to be in the world? What environments, what people am I going to be interacting with over the next period of time? What place am I taking in the world? What am I doing? What am I actually contributing? What actions am I taking? What good can I do in the world? And then who am I becoming? What are the characteristics that I want to bring forth? Are there areas in my personality that I want to develop and lean into? Is there more that I can contribute? Are there challenges that I can overcome? Are there things on the horizon that I need to wrestle with? But on all of these questions, where am I going? What am I doing? Who am I becoming? Make this business of purpose not not a map for you to follow, but an unfolding path for you to make with your own feet. And for me, that is really immensely exciting. So that's really kind of my kind of like headline stuff about if you're in this business of, coming to the end of a month, maybe that's alcohol free, or where maybe you've been considering how to change your drinking. Just these three big picture things. So this decision: are you going to continue alcohol free? Are you going to consciously include alcohol? Make a plan, stick to it, see what emerges, learn, change. You'll get there. Take some time as you go along. Every now and again, take some time to look back, consolidate your progress, and ask yourself some good questions. And at the same time that you do that, plan for whatever comes next. And that's it, really. That's the whole of this. It's an evolving. We talk about this as a journey of changing club soda, and it really is. As you begin to move towards the life that you imagine, as you begin to put alcohol in its place, really exciting new things emerge for you. And I want to wish you all the best for the journey ahead. So I also, just in kind of wrapping up, I want to talk a little bit about some practicalities of the festival and what happens next. So if you've been watching the festival, even if like literally you've joined today, and or you've joined at the beginning of November, and you're looking at all of this stuff, it's just so that all of the festival content is available for you for as long as you need it, basically. So even if you've joined us right at the end of the month, don't feel that you have to cram all this stuff. We have got over 30 hours of video content for you to explore. You can take your time over it. It's going to be available for you for as long as you need it. So feel free to come back to it. If there's a talk that inspired you, bookmark it, come back to it in a month's time and watch it again. There's lots to dive into and explore, and all of it, everything that we've done here is available to watch again. So please do that. If you haven't already, do join us on Telegram. And again, that group that we set up for the festival, we're actually going to be continuing it beyond the end of October into November. We're actually going to be shifting things around behind the scenes in Club Soda, but it's going to become the primary place where we support people on our courses. So you'll find other people joining after the end of November. But do continue that conversation. Share how things are going for you. If you've hit a challenge, or you've hit a success, or you just want to chat. We had a brilliant conversation. People shared dog pictures earlier in the weekend. Whatever it is, come and chat with like-minded people. We're all in this business of changing our relationship with alcohol together. So come and join in that conversation if you haven't already. And then the other thing I just want to talk about is a little bit about Club Soda's courses. My role in Club Soda is basically that I write and lead all of our courses for people who are changing their drinking. And a Club Soda course could be a brilliant way to consolidate what you've learned this month. We've got 2 in-depth courses: how to stop drinking if you are continuing alcohol free or want to build a life that's alcohol free in the long term, or if you want to take a break, and then how to stop drinking. So if you want to consciously include alcohol in your life in some way, if you're experimenting with change, if you're unsure what's going to work for you, these 2 in-depth courses will give you the tools that you need to create the change that you want for the life that you want to live. They each come with 31 lessons, lots of exercises, daily prompts by email, reflections at the end of each lesson so you can notice what's going on, track your happiness over time, 4 big reviews through the course, and of course engagement with other people in our Telegram group. So do consider signing up to one of those courses. We've also got a short course called How to Journal. So this is particularly useful. It can work alongside either of those in-depth courses. But actually, if you've used the festival to consolidate change, if you've got good plans and you know what's going on, and you're continuing to live this life, then How to Journal actually could be a really good course for you. It introduces 7 different journaling techniques that you can use to reflect on what's happening, to consolidate change, to build for new things. So do consider that. That's a great short course, 7 lessons, and again, comes with the support of the community. The other thing to say is, if you are looking ahead to the festive season, we have a special annual course program called Christmas with Club Soda. It's led by my co-founder Laura. It kicks off on the 27th of November. and it takes you step by step through the holiday season right up to the 1st of January. So if you are considering a festive season which is alcohol free, in which you're drinking very occasionally, then Christmas with Club Soda could be the support that you need. So I just want to encourage you, if you're thinking, I'm going to be all right in November, but crap, Christmas is coming and I don't know what to do. Christmas with Club Soda, it's open right now, so you can sign up. It's got a short introductory lesson. We're kicking off properly at the end of November, on the 27th of November, but you can sign up for it right now. It's available, and there'll be information about all of those courses coming out in the email tomorrow to you. And then the final thing, and again, this is in the email tomorrow, is that we would love to hear how this festival has been for you. Club Soda is a social impact business. We are in the business of creating a world where people drink more mindfully and live well. And giving away this festival is a really important part of that. And we hope that it has a positive impact. But we want to hear, so we want to hear if something's worked for you, if something hasn't worked for you, if something's been brilliant, if something's been annoying. We want to hear from you. So again, there's an email coming out tomorrow, Monday the 1st of November. It's got a link to a feedback survey, and we'd love to hear how the festival has been for you. And we would, to say thank you for giving us your feedback, we'll enter you in a prize draw. So you can either win a box of alcohol-free drinks or a Club Soda course or an equivalent Amazon voucher, depending on where you are in the world and what works for you. So I just want to encourage you to sign up for that. Wow, here we are. And so we come to the end of the road. Thank you so much for your company over this month. Club Soda, of course, continues. We will be back with more content regularly in November. Oh, didn't mean to do that. Hit that by mistake. We'll be back with more content throughout November and into December. We continue to be around on Telegram, through our courses, in our big Facebook group, on Instagram, elsewhere. We're not going anywhere. We're here for the long haul. And we're here for as long as you need us. So thank you so much for your company during the Mindful Drinking Festival. It has been absolutely amazing spending the time with you. I hope that it's been brilliant for you. And I will look forward to continuing this adventure with you as we move into November. Okay, cheers.